Hey everyone in a cultivated life community. I am live today talking about 10 tips for emotionally healthy processing and facing pain. I added the facing pain part to the title because that's really what a lot of us are challenged to do when it comes to emotional processing is it's the pain aspect that's so hard to face and the feelings that come with whatever that pain is. It can be a pain related to um, hurt that we have of some kind. It can be pain related to current events all over the spectrum. There can be anger, there can be fear, there can be sadness, all these different things. But to face the underlying things that cause us high emotions can be really challenging. And so, healthy emotional processing is something that we don't necessarily just know how to do because our brains go into this fight, flight, or freeze response. And there's some other words that people will use like fawn or faint, those types of things, all to indicate ways that our body's response system is to protect us. It's designed to protect us from danger. However, sometimes what's dangerous isn't necessarily physically potentially dangerous or immediately dangerous. And so we can feel that fear response when we feel threatened. But we can, if we deny it, if we ignore it, it doesn't get resolved. It just kind of goes under the surface a little bit and then it can build up. And we have built up anxiety, we have built up stresses, we have built up reactionary responses to other people. Some the times when we react very strongly to something and we don't even know why. I've noticed that myself in the last week, a few different situations where something inside of me was just angry. And I don't even know why. I couldn't describe it, I couldn't explain it, but there was something underneath there. In any case, it's helpful to consider different ways to process pain in a healthy way because if we don't, it doesn't just disappear. It does build up. And that causes problems for us internally, physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally, spiritually, and probably financially as well. It leaks into all these other areas of our lives and into the way that we interact with other people. And it leaks into the way that we're able to connect to God, where we are able to receive from Him, where we are able to feel His presence. So, when emotions are starting to stir up and we notice that there's something that's possibly there, or that we're having these reactions, or that we're facing a lot of change, and there's maybe some mental awareness, conscious awareness that there is a nudge to do something with this pain, but it's scary because it is painful, or to do something with all the emotions that are overwhelming. These 10 tips should hopefully be helpful for you. I have done shorter videos which focus on three primary tips if the emotion is very overwhelming, simply to bring it down into a workable level. This is going to go a little further than that. The first tip is name the feeling. We name the feeling. There is a term that Dan Siegel uses, and I think others as well. It's called name it to tame it. So when emotion is super high and intense, just the practice of naming it calms our body systems down. It actually releases chemicals in our brain that soothes things, not to completely calm and peaceful levels, but it does something to help bring that super high level down a little bit so that it's more workable. So if you're feeling afraid of processing your emotional pain, naming the feeling is kind of anchoring, because if you're afraid that you're going to get sucked under a whirlwind of feeling and emotion and then it's not going to be tolerable, knowing that you have some resources like naming the feeling, I didn't actually include in this listing, but grounding resources, and you can just definitely ask me for information on some of this. But when you have some of those resources available to you, then you know that you have a little bit more capacity to go through some of that painful process that brings you through to another outcome. It's a good kind of pain that gets you through to the other side. So, naming the feeling is a way to start. Number two, feel the feeling. Maybe that's the most scary part, but feeling anger when you're afraid to be angry, or if, like me, you believed anger is a sin, isn't so easy to do. It doesn't mean that you don't get angry or that you don't have angry responses, but maybe you're not experiencing anger or expressing it where you need to, in safe places or in response to situations where people have done something evil and wrong. We can feel more compassion for a perpetrator of harm than we do for ourselves when we are harmed, or for a victim who's been harmed, someone who's been harmed by another. It is appropriate to experience anger when there's been an injustice. And even if the anger that's present doesn't seem appropriate, it still needs to be processed. And so that can be kind of tricky because we don't want to be harming people. We don't want to harm ourselves. We don't want to harm property. It may need the safety of a therapeutic counselor or a good friend, or journaling, or speaking out loud to God. One way that I process some of my anger is through journaling. And honestly, when I'm really angry and upset or hurt or scared, when either of those feelings are really strong, my writing is like it's all over the place. It's a mess. And that's okay. It's helping me actually get that out. But using honest words about it is also really helpful, because simply saying, um, okay, name the feeling, I am angry, and then feeling it, man, like sometimes I need it to get out of me and express it, not to everybody, not to the world, not on social media, but I need to get it out. And for those who have been my safe people, who've allowed me to express anger in a safe place, I am so thankful for them. They have helped me tremendously. And for others who have been in a process group with me and felt anger on my behalf when I wasn't yet able to express or experience anger appropriately for an appropriate circumstance that should have anger, um, they helped me work through that. And then didn't feel stuck anymore. Okay, number one, name the feeling. Two, feel the feeling. Three, find support through friends. What's key here, though, is safe friends. And so you might want to learn about what it means to be a safe person, or finding safe people. You can find the book by Cloud and Townsend that talks about it. There's lots and lots of articles online about safe people. Ultimately, you want to have a safe friend that is someone who's going to allow you to have those emotions without correcting your emotional experience, correcting your thinking on the spot, correcting everything that's happening as you're processing. Processing is a process. It doesn't mean that's the outcome. The goal is to get through it to the other side so that we're able to see things more clearly, think more clearly, see God more clearly, make choices that are difficult to make but are good for us and good for other people. In the moment when the emotion is intense, we need a place to be able to process through that. So finding support through friends can be done through texting. It could be done through, video calls or voicemail. I messaged some of my friends this weekend, actually one in particular, and another person offered, when I had a lot of emotion stirring up. My son experienced the loss of a friend recently, and there's a lot of emotion tied to that. And another friend who is in ICU, and just multiple things that are kind of building up. And so other circumstances in life feel stronger. And I needed a place to just kind of let some of that out and work through it, knowing that with it being out, I wouldn't be bothered by it. Actually, didn't end up doing that this weekend, but I do still plan on contacting one of my friends, not so that I could just rail against something, but that I can talk through it. And if that anger surfaces, that I know I have a safe place because that friend is trustworthy. She's not going to be mad at me or like judging me because I have anger. Another helpful tip for emotional processing is to find a support group. So, in support groups, there are guidelines and principles and practices in place that help make it a safe community. In most cases, there's always exceptions, right? But if you look for a support group like Celebrate Recovery, Life Recovery, there's Codependence Anonymous, there's Alcoholics Anonymous, Al Anon. So for people who are in relationship with someone with an addiction, and Celebrate Recovery and Life Recovery, by the way, for anybody and everybody. One of the main groups for Celebrate Recovery is hurts, habits, and hangups. So you don't have to have an addiction to go to one of these amazing recovery groups, which will help you process through life things and have the safe community with other people who are growth minded. So those are free support groups that are out in the community, and they are available online. You can find them all over the place with free meetings. um, our church, for example, in Austin, Texas, meets on Tuesday nights. And so there's, I think, maybe just the group share meetings. There's two aspects to Celebrate Recovery, which has a big group meeting for everybody. And then it splits off gender specific groups. And then some people may have specifics for an addiction, or it may be hurts, habits, and hangups in general, codependence, all kinds of different things. Those meetings are all being held via Zoom right now. And so there are options. There's a lot of free options. Other options that are out there are process groups and other support groups offered by local counselors, therapists, psychologists. If you look at some counseling offices, you might find groups for specific for eating disorders or for anxiety. Um, I learned today of a couple of special centers in the area that do groups for eating disorders. And there are a lot of options. Some are free, some have a reduced cost. And generally, in the group settings, it's going to be less expensive than if you do individual counseling because you're working together with a group of other people. And it will probably be, the sessions will be a little bit longer because that format works better for having a group. There's all kinds of support group options out there. Tip number 5, allow emotion while praying. Some of us may have a hard time kind of letting God really see us in our messes, even though mentally we know that He knows it and He sees us technically, like we can know that, but it's still scary to let all the tears out, to let the anger come out, to let the confusion come out, to let the fear come out, because we have all this language around us and all this, uplifting and encouragement around us to stand strong in faith and to live in victory. But that can start to feel like an obligation that means that we can't ever feel fear or feel anger. And so if that's you, if that's been challenging, you're definitely going to need some healthy emotional processing. And I encourage you to start in that direction with God, to allow some more emotion to be processed in your quiet time with God. And you could, I mean, I'm just saying orally out loud or in your mind, whatever works for you. If you need to drive a little ways away from the house and go out into an area where people can't really hear you, then do that and do it out loud and really loud if you need to. Um, you know that phrase that says, a good cry, you had a good cry? There's a reason for it because the emotions came out and there was some processing happening in your body when and it's hard because if you're sobbing and you're weeping and then you start to catch your breath, you can actually feel relief afterwards. You're exhausted and you need a nap, probably. I do. I have many times. But when we're talking to God, let's give Him the credit of how powerful and amazing He is. Let's give Him the credit of His ability to handle and contain the big emotions that are inside of us. He can do it. Number 6, write out your raw thoughts and feelings. There is something, I've tried to look up some of the articles. I always forget to link to these, but is a lot of research about the therapeutic benefits and the healing benefits of writing, and also the way that it helps our brain slow down a little bit and get in touch with the thoughts and feelings that we're writing out. So that's one reason people will suggest journaling and that type of thing. So you can either just write it out in a journal, you can write out a prayer, you can write out about your past experiences. If you'd like some guidance and facilitation in the process, I recommend using the tool that I created called Unleash Heart and Soul Care Sheets. It gives you a specific flow of processing your circumstances, your thoughts, your feelings, and engaging God in that process. Ultimately, even that simple process of getting honest with God and writing it out in its raw form. I am so flippin' angry because of this, and I think this, but really I know this, and I don't want this, and I wish this, and these are not the end all goal. These are the working through to get to the goal. Again, I feel like that's so important to understand because I hear so many people talk about don't get hung up in your emotions and they're not leading you, and that's important. They're not leading you, but if we get into this stepping away from emotions place stance, then we don't recognize the power and the necessity to go through that process so that we can experience the fruit of God's peace, of God's joy, of his freedom, of his life vibrant within us. Number 7, meet with a quality mental health counselor or therapist. And I say quality here because not all of them are high quality. Not all of them are going to honor your faith journey. And not all will necessarily honor, they may be focused so much on a particular path that I don't know. I just, not everyone's equal, but there are quality therapists out there. I am one of them. I hope that's my plan and my goal. But I have also met lots of other great people who are fantastic at allowing space for those emotions, not judging you, not condemning you, helping you work through the thoughts and feelings that are tied to it so that you're actually experiencing not just the thought of a belief change, but the knowing and the internalizing of beliefs that have shifted inside of you at a deep level, and that shapes how you actually operate in this world. Number 8, notice and accept sensations in the body. When you are maybe hesitant to process emotions, pause for a second. Notice the resistance. Where do you feel it in your body? Okay, right now I feel pressure in my back, or my stomach feels kind of knotted up. My breathing feels tight. I don't know. What is it like for you? Just notice it. Maybe say it out loud, kind of like naming the feeling. All we're doing is we're stating its existence. We're acknowledging that it's there without judgment, which makes space for us to take a healthy path. So just notice the sensations in your body. And if you want to take some steps to calm the body, that can be really helpful. Um, some Christian meditation, some muscle relaxation exercises, whatever works for you to help your muscles and physiological sensations experience a calming sensation instead. So that's not an obligation there, but with this tips, you're just noticing and accepting that those sensations are there. They're there. Number 9, mentally address the problematic thinking patterns. So this is kind of more towards the end of emotional processing. Once you've named it, you've felt it, you've worked through it with safe friends or a support group, or and maybe a counselor or therapist or coach or someone, you're working through this process, you're getting the support that you need, and you're noticing the feelings. Now you're calm enough to actually also work with the thought processes that are happening. So you might write them down, you might say them out loud. Oh man, I am saying a lot of negative things about myself. I am telling myself that it's not okay to be me. I am telling myself that it's okay for everyone else to stand up and say no, but it's not okay for me. Simply acknowledging it brings it to a level of more tangible reality for us. We can kind of sense that there's thoughts that we're having that we maybe shouldn't have, that type of thing. This process is simply noticing what those thinking patterns are, so that you can bring them before God and also talk to yourself and address them and say, I don't have to That's not something I want to believe. If I was talking to someone else and they told me that they thought it was okay for everyone else to say no except for them, I would want to encourage them. That means it's okay for me to receive that encouragement, that I can say no, that I can stand up for myself, that I can be calm and I don't have to react in a strong way, that I can receive the help that I need for my body to calm down. So you're noticing that it's there and then addressing it in a healthy way, and then maybe creating kind of anchoring phrases for yourself so the next time those emotions start to build up, that you have that anchoring phrase to go back to. For me, one of the ones in my healing journey, struggling so much with feeling valued or valuable, I did have to remind myself that I was valuable. And I started thinking, oh my goodness, this is like some old, gosh, maybe back in the 80s or something. There was a guy there, or was it maybe a funny meme in a show? I don't know. Um, where he would say positive things in the mirror to himself, whatever. And that alone is not helpful. In connection with your structure and your support with other people, with naming feelings, with processing the emotions, and having experiences that help your belief systems change. That anchoring belief acknowledgement can help facilitate that. On its own, I don't believe it's enough. I don't think it's enough to change people, but it can be helpful. And I believe that it's very helpful in this context of a more thorough process of healing and experiencing things also with other people. So I am valuable. Then I take it to the next step, which is number 10, choosing a follow up activity or a step. So for me, for example, as I'm challenging the thought of I am valuable, I'm not feeling it, I'm feeling unworthy, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling fearful, because if I'm valuable, that means that I am using my voice in a certain way. I'm using the gifts that God has given me. I'm presenting myself as confident, humble, but confident. That's my goal. Humble, bold humility is the catchphrase I use. So my follow up activity is okay, I'm battling these thoughts, recognizing I am valuable. Now I need to take a step that shows alignment with God's value in me and me accepting his value of me and operating with that value. What does that look like today? So these are little steps that would happen in all kinds of different circumstances. It could be with talking to people. It could be presenting an idea to someone. It could be taking on a new job position. It could be recognizing that you want to take a career change, or um, even fear in talking to a friend or a colleague or something like that. In these different situations, just take it one at a time. If I believe this, whatever your phrases or the way that you're addressing the problematic thinking pattern is, how can you step forward in alignment with what God says? And or even maybe it's just I can respond calmly. So noticing heightened emotions that come up really quickly, giving your brain a chance to respond from a calmer state by naming the feeling, and then catching yourself quickly and saying, I don't have to respond this way right now. I don't want to respond this way. I choose not to respond this way. That's kind of just some thought patterns that can help you make some healthier decisions in the future. And again, simply saying, well, I'm not going to experience anger. I just choose not to be angry. That alone is ineffective. It really needs to be a more thorough process and is super helpful to include the support of other people, because as you start taking these steps, then the enemy comes in and then you have more lies coming in, or you have circumstances that play out that make it challenging to continue moving forward in the healing process. Having that support structure of safe friends or a support group or counselor, all of them, whatever it is, it helps remind you of who you are and that you're capable and that you're still loved in the process. God did not design us to do this journey alone. God is the source of love, and he works his love through other people. We need those healthy, safe people in our lives to help us continue to grow. Thank you for joining me today, and I look forward to talking to you next week on my Monday Live. Take care.